Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. One of the big storylines of last season is officially back in business, with Toronto playing Vegas in just a couple of weeks' time. Scrappy versus Standy is back on the menu in a series of 8s last night, discovered with a fair few spicy word to say for Standy on the other side of things, explaining why he's so bad at the game and why his team is floundering at the bottom of the league. Very much into your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. I thought this is a pretty funny idea actually here from Brack, so I'm pretty sure he thinks he's going to be dead here for sure. We're here on high-rise control. He's down to 7 HP, so he decides to go basically kamikaze mode and blow up this barrel, which kills himself and the guy who was shooting at him, but also his own teammates. So maybe it didn't really help. But, you know, tips and tricks to add it to the arsenal. Just wanted to mention for you guys as well, speaking of BPL, because we're going to get on to discuss some of the spice in the pro side in a couple of minutes. BPL-C is effectively like anyone can play in this. There's the Premier Division where like the top challenger guys play that aren't in the BPL side. If they get top 2, they can get promoted. We saw some drama over that the other day, but anybody can play in this. And easymac has also set up the first money queue for this. So instead of it just being for free, kind of what we're doing for BPL over the course of a month, where there's like 3 grand or whatever it is on the line, where the top pros will get paid out the money after who gets the most MMR over the course of it. It's kind of the same thing here for anyone to get involved in the BPL-C queue. This is just in North America for now, but if it goes well, hopefully it will happen elsewhere also, where it's a 3-day money queue. So whoever has the most MMR, the top 10 players, I'm pretty sure, after the end of the 3 days, this coming Friday, it begins at 12 PM Eastern and then ends on Monday, January the 8th at 12 AM Eastern. So it's 60 hours of playtime, so basically 2.5 days. Over the course of the weekend, the top 10 players in MMR at the end of the weekend in terms of who's won the most in this solo queue. Lobby, you queue up, you see if you win, you lose, you gain MMR, you lose MMR. The top 10 players get paid out, and all of the prize money is going to go towards that, basically. So there's a buy-in. If you go in the BPL-C Discord, go to the shop, then you'll find this in the shop, so money queue number 1, and you can purchase the entry, basically, to the tournament, and then all the winnings will get paid out. So I thought that was really cool. If you guys want to get involved in that, feel free to. Plenty of other things, though, to get into. Atlanta FaZe, we did see yesterday the Miami Heretics team, camo skins, all this type of stuff. This is what FaZe have got going on here. So, you know, look, as I say, it's not exactly setting the world on fire, is it? It's the same stuff about at this point for several years. I do miss the days of, you know, back in Black Ops 3. Oh my god, I've done it again. I actually didn't even mean to do it this time. I'm back at the Black Ops 3 guys. So anyway, I guess I'll better continue where I started. Black Ops 3 used to be able to get the team camos for the weapons, and it was a team pack for all the different regions. You could buy the North American pack, the European pack, or the APAC pack, and in those you would get all of the skins for all of the weapons in the game for, you know, every gun, and they were all really clean in that game as well. Like the Cloud9 one was especially good. Then I have the actual team logo on. To be fair, that does look like it has the actual FaZe logo on now a little bit. So, okay, maybe they're slightly better now, the weapon camos, than we've had for the last couple of years, but it's still not like it was back in the day. And, you know, back then you paid once and then you got everything. Today, not the case, but, you know, I get it. They want more money. It is what it is. But at this point, pretty much every single team is back into practice for the matches starting in just a few days. To be honest, I don't really know why the CDL doesn't start this Friday, because let's be honest, they've had another big break over Christmas and New Year's. This Friday would be the perfect date to restart the league, but no, it's 1 week later. I don't really know why. Maybe because Boston's event had to be on a certain weekend, so they decided, you know what, let's just have another week off. It's like, come on, we waited 6 months for the season to start. We're 2 weeks into the season, and all of a sudden there's basically a month break. And people will be wondering, like, people who watch more casually, they'll be thinking, all right, this Friday, probably the league will be back. They'll tune in and they won't find it there. They'll think, okay, what's going on? Is that it for the season, right? But thankfully, it is going to be back on the 12th, I believe. It's going to start again. Still not sure why it's not this Friday, but, you know, just CDL things, I suppose. But all the teams are back into practice. Some of them will have barely stopped at all. But of course, some of the pro teams, we talked about Toronto, we talked about Carolina. We'll discuss them more later on today. Just getting back into practice over the last couple of days and on the new patch for the first time. Now, the new patch hasn't changed absolutely everything in terms of the game, but certain maps are quite considerably different. You know, Terminal and Sub Base and, you know, a couple of maps like this. Some of them haven't changed too much, but some of the spawns are definitely different. You can argue that's for good or for ill. Certain teams think different ways on that. And, you know, there's still questions about what about Greece? What about, you know, even Rio or some other maps that get added to the game as well after Major 1? Because the general feeling is that after Major 1, we're probably going to have a change in the map pool somewhere. But until then, It's about the pros grinding on these present maps and how they're going to fare going forward. But two of the interesting teams right now in the league, I mean, there's so many storylines around so many teams, but one of them is certainly around the Toronto Ultra. We talked about it yesterday when, you know, Envoy was maybe not having the best time in scrims. And sure, okay, on some of those scoreboards, I was looking at the latency. On some of them, I'm pretty sure, looking at the deaths. But whatever, if Envoy's got 10 kills in a map, he's probably gone negative, right? And he's maybe not having the best time right now, as we saw, you know, in the final match they played of the stage against the Boston Breach. And that does make things very interesting for Toronto, because they were sitting kind of pretty. They'd slammed Ravens. They took down Los Angeles Guerrillas, right? Even though that was, you know, to be fair, that was pretty comfortable, actually, that series for Toronto, despite how decent LAG look. So going into that Boston series, if they'd have beaten them, we'd have said, all right, yeah, Toronto solidifying themselves top 4, top 3, top 2, maybe even better team as it stands. But after that loss, questions raised on the Toronto team. And sure, there should be no issues for them qualifying for the winners bracket going into Major 1. But last year, they achieved a lot with that roster. This year, you know, they need to try and do the same, because it's an organization that definitely wants success, and they've got the players theoretically to achieve it. So BPL-H go down, Clay, everyone else getting involved as we have seen, Scrappy and Standy also getting involved. Big drama between these two over the last couple of years. They used to like play together, I think, way back in the day. Then, of course, they were on the Toronto Ultra team at the start of last season. Standy then gets dropped from the roster. Scrappy like celebrates and says, "I'll thank the Lord, Standy's gone," basically. Clearly, they didn't get along particularly well for various reasons. Then Standy goes to Vegas, and that is still the status quo today. Standy's still on Vegas, Scrappy is still on Toronto, and there is still some drama between the two of them.
Hello, my small bridge on you again.
Yeah.
Dude, he's top 3.
Top 3?
You top 3. Fucking stupid bro. Your team sucks absolute dick.
Weak. Nice, good shit. Take your time.
So I find it pretty funny, right? It was only just the other day we saw Dashy and Awakening. Well, it wasn't really Dashy and Awakening, it was Dashy going at Awakening, and then HyDra also chipping in to agree with Dashy that Awakening has no idea what he's doing. So, you know, it's not a massive surprise that here we are with Scrappy having a go at Standy, basically saying this guy's terrible, no idea what he's doing, and therefore no wonder his team are trash, which is, you know, quite funny. And to be fair, from Scrappy's side, he can kind of get away with saying this stuff in the same way that when he was beefing Clay, in the same way that now he's beefing Standy again. At least Toronto are a better team than those two teams, right? But then again, let's not forget last season when, I think, was it not Toronto and Legion, they played each other at some point. There was, I think Scrappy said that he was going to slam him. I'm not sure that actually happened, but there was certainly that moment where Scrappy lost, like he had a terrible game 5, went like 2 in 9 in a game 5, and that victory, maybe it was against Surge, and therefore, or maybe it's against Rocker, I can't really exactly remember, but they lost to a team that they really should have beaten, and that gave 10 points to a team that Vegas were fighting against for World Championship qualification. So there was an argument that maybe, given the fact that like Toronto didn't need to win that series at all, they were already comfortably qualified, there was an argument that whether, you know, Scrappy deliberately threw that game 5 to screw over Standy basically on Vegas, because we know that these two had a fair bit of beef last season, not just when they were teaming together, but certainly after the fact and in the series to follow. But in the same way that when Scrappy and Toronto play Ravens, he can beef with Clay, safe in the knowledge that he knows they're going to slam them when they play them in the series, which is of course exactly what occurred here. Whether that will be the case for Vegas, because as I said earlier, there will be on the 20th of January, 8 PM, I guess that's my time. So that would be first match of the day, Toronto versus Vegas Legion. So we get this series again. And I got to say for Vegas, man, they have a hard run in from now until the start of Major 1. Because here we go, this is the Vegas Legion team. They've not been looking particularly good so far. Attach's been fine. I think Nero and Standy have been fine. And to be honest, their record would look better if they didn't just completely bottle that series against Ravens, right? I mean, that was a travesty, really. These are the 4 series they've played so far. They beat Rocker in a game 5. They absolutely should have beaten Ravens in that game 5 where Clay got the ninja defuse. Gwyn somehow snuck through the mid-cut to get an ace in the round 11. Like, that was ridiculous. They should really have been 2 in 2 here. The series against Heretics wasn't, you know, an absolute bloodbath either. I mean, it was a round 11 in the search and destroy. The maps were relatively close here. So, you know, Vegas have looked okay, but just overall, especially Purge has had a pretty hard time. Purge is now sitting at a 0.74 overall KD so far. And yeah, he's had a bit of a stinker, really. So, you know, lots to improve on there. And as we see in the search and destroy, they're looking pretty good in it. They actually looked kind of a dominant force in search and destroy when they played Minnesota Rocker, right? They slammed them in the searches, but Purge has a 0.75 in the hard point. and, you know, in control, it's just straight up ugly. Got a 0.74. Standy sitting here about a 0.91, and that's, you know, perfectly acceptable for now. And is Standy the reason why the team is underperforming? No, I wouldn't say so, but on the whole, the team just isn't especially good at the moment, and their matches only get harder. This is the difficult thing for them, that they've played Heretics, they've played Ravens, you know, they've got their victory against Rocker, and they probably should have beaten Ravens. That should have been 2 Ws. But are Legion a top 8 team? I don't personally think so. They've lost to Miami, they've lost to the Subliners, and now they are going to play OpTic, FaZe, and Toronto. Those are the 3 games to close out their set of qualifiers. So, you know, good luck with that, I guess. They're already 1 in 3. They're already 9th in the CDL standings with 10 points. You know, it's looking like a 1 in 6, isn't it? Let's be honest. I don't see them beating OpTic. I don't see them beating FaZe. Toronto, who knows? Maybe it's possible. And Standy will clearly be out for blood, I suppose, after what Scrappy's had to say here. But in the same way that when Scrappy beeps Clayster and knows that he can beat him, I wouldn't be massively surprised if Toronto come in here very confident that he's going to slam Standy the other way. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. There is a bit of a dichotomy, I think, sometimes, because when Dashy was roasting Awakening, you know, there were lots of replies at roasting Dashy. You know, how dare Dashy say this type of stuff to whatever. But then when Scrappy does, it's like, oh yeah, go on, Scrap, like a good trash talk, I guess. I don't know. I suppose it works both ways at the end of the day. And there is a lot of talk about, you know, all of these different ARs this season, because it's interesting for Toronto with Scrappy. Last season, he was like the dominant force, MVP candidate on that team as the Rookie of the Year, of course, as well. This year, Insight looks stronger so far than he was last year. So, you know, maybe there isn't as many kills for Scrappy to go around. So I guess we'll see whether Scrappy can get himself in that kind of MVP category again, like we would expect Cellium and Dashy to be in for their respective teams this season, although we haven't really seen MVP level form from Scrappy, I would say, quite as of yet. Just one final thing to close out here I thought was interesting here from Doug, thinking about starting a podcast called Uncensored, where we mainly speak about challenges with other top challengers players and faces for the community. So, you know, we'll see how this goes. I thought it was pretty funny that the rotation got back to him and said, oh, you know, maybe let's run this up, because we know that Doug was beefing a bit with the rotation after that top 62 challengers players they did. But a pretty funny reply here actually from Choppy, who says that last time Doug went uncensored, he damn near got cancelled. You guys probably remember that one from the off-season a couple of months ago, where Doug had a fair few gamer words to say on stream that, well, nearly cost him big time. And very much interested in your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
Get a sippy cup? Well, you know what's actually funny? When I was a little kid, I actually kind of remember this. I actually spilled my drink so much to the point where, like, I actually had to get a sippy cup. I was hella clumsy when I was a little kid. Oh my god, bro. I remember walking out of Walmart with a big-ass gallon of milk. I'll never forget this. And I literally dropped that shit, and it splattered all over the street. And, like, I tried picking it up. Like, I was gonna save it. But all the milk, like, fell out because, like, everything, like, it, like, split apart. And my mom literally was, like, just raging at me.